to our program on community resources. And today we're going to hear about St. Vincent de Paul from Bob Tribblehorn. And he's a volunteer. And from Heather, and I'm going blank on your last name. Alexander from Spokane, that works with Goodwill. You're vice president?
I'm the vice president for communications.
Vice president for communications. And Brian Nutrock.
You got it.
From the Hope Center. He'll tell us, well, all three will tell us about what their organizations do. Because I think there's a wide variety of what their organizations do, and also, well, just all about their organizations. And we will have a question and answer period the last 10 minutes. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Oh, okay. We're both vulnerable that way.
Mary Jo, who would you like to go first?
Let's just go down the line.
Want me to go
Let's
first?
start with Brian.
Right. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. It is actually, I've kind of had this itch, to be in front of the League of Women Voters for a while. So this is kind of a neat opportunity, kind of fulfills a longing that I've had. So I consider it an honor and a privilege to meet with you all. Can you hear me okay? Is that everybody in the back? Little closer there. Okay. So yes, my name is Brian Nutrock, and I have been the executive director at the Hope Center here in Moscow for coming up on almost 4 years now. And wanted just to kind of start off with a little bit of a story. When I was brand new to the Hope Center, this was within the first 2 weeks I was there, I had an opportunity with a couple colleagues to interview a particular program participant, actually a prospective program participant. And this young lady was sitting across from myself and my two colleagues, and she was just shaking like a leaf. And she's looking down and will not give us any eye contact, but we're starting to kind of get some bits and pieces from her story. And her parents were basically severe alcoholics from the time she was very little. And so we're starting to think, okay, yeah, I think I can understand why she's presenting the way that she was. She basically described her home in this way, that the front door of the house was like a revolving door of men just coming in and out, just having their way with her mom. And she stated that her current level of social anxiety was so bad that she would literally throw up before work. And I hope you can kind of understand how dramatically that affected me as I'm coming on board as the brand new director, right? Like, what an awesome privilege that we get to work with precious people like this young lady. And I'm just kind of sitting there, with tears in my eyes, listening to this gal talk. And I think God has an interesting way of preparing us, for jobs and tours of duty. I myself, had a spinal deformity when I was growing up. And so I had my own personal history with social anxiety. So my heart's going out to this young lady while she's talking. And of course, my heart goes out to all of the program participants at the Hope Center that we work with who struggle with these sorts of issues. At our benefit dinner this last year, we had an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about some of the things we do at the Hope Center. We do a recovery hour. Every Wednesday, we do a recovery hour, and during one of our exercises, we had the participants actually write down how they see themselves. So this is an actual list of some of the words that they wrote down, and it says worthless, not enough, not good enough, stupid, freak, felon, generally bad, drug addict, and alone. So I think this would create social anxiety if you saw yourself that way.
Were there any that were good?
They didn't say anything that was positive, right? And do you think it would impede your employability if this is how you saw yourself, right? Obviously, yeah, it would. So what do we do at the Hope Center? So essentially what we do is we work with these kind of people who have significant impediments in the way of being employed. They've got deep barriers in the way of getting employed, and we provide workforce training for them and eventual job placement opportunities. How do we do this? Well, a lot of our folks come from some pretty broken family of origin narratives. They've dealt with a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse, and a lot of them have made some really bad decisions. And so they're dealing with a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. So we provide healing relationships for these people. And those relationships come in the form of job coaches, and mentors, case managers, and so forth. But we come alongside these people and give them a safe place to get ready to get back out into the workforce. And we provide them with accountability and, like I said, recovery programming every Wednesday. We do that for an hour, structured breakouts and so forth. And we have speakers come in and talk, and sometimes our own staff will talk. This morning, for instance, we had one of our own staff members who's been with the Hope Center for, I don't want to say she's been there for about 8 years, but she was a local drug dealer here, and her life has been radically transformed. And boy, I had a headache by the time that was over. I had so many tears coming down my cheeks. It was such a powerful story, but to be able to say, hey, look at, where we as staff have come from, and here's an opportunity for you to be able to recover as well. So we do provide that. We provide workforce training as well, and certification in 7 different workforce zones. And we require incremental growth within the program. So there's soft skills that we're measuring that we want to see them moving forward with respect to things like goal setting and follow through, recovery, sobriety, attendance, and attitude, self-direction, initiative, communication, teamwork, accountability, hygiene, all those sorts of things. We're measuring integrity and so forth to make sure that they're moving forward. So if they're not moving forward, we're working with people who they're willing to make positive life changes. If they're not, then they're opting out of the program. So we work with them in a remedial fashion, but we want them to continue to move forward in the program while they're there. And then there's also a 3-phase leadership program where they get to engage in special projects and so forth while they're in the program. And then some of them will be selected for a 6-month program extension where they actually function as supervisors by the time they leave the program. So really trying to build confidence, trying to build their resume. A lot of folks we work with have felony backgrounds, so you can imagine how difficult that is without a resume, without some people to advocate for you. So that's a big deal, and we're celebrating their growth along the way. We do like pizza parties and latte parties, and we'll go into local venues like Moscow axe throwing or Zeppo's bowling and celebrate their graduations as they move forward in the program, because that's such a huge thing, that issue of recognition. So many of these people have never been anybody's favorite ever. So we consider it, that's our job. We want them to feel like they're our favorite. And so we shine the spotlight on them as much as we can. And they make money along the way as they're working on their recovery, and they're working in the store. The wages are, we try to be as competitive as we can be. It's hard, but they do make wages while they're working in the store. And then our goal is that they get placed in regional jobs and then long-term community. And so we're helping them with that as well. And then we also have a voucher program as well. And so we distribute vouchers to different folks like St. Vincent's and Palouse CareNet and Sojourners, Family Promise and Latah Recovery, a lot of different churches in the local region. They are giving out vouchers, and then folks who have needs will come in the store and they can get basic life-sustaining types of things that they need for themselves. So brief word just on like the history of the Hope Center. So we began as a single clothes closet in the Nazarene Church, Moscow Nazarene Church in 1988. And then we moved to our current location in 2009. And then we became an independent nonprofit in 2013. So there's a rumor going around town that the Hope Center is owned by one church. That is false. We are not owned by one church. We're a Christian ministry. We represent a ton of churches, across the Palouse, whether Pullman or Moscow. And as far as people we work with, who come in the program, they may be faith-based people, they may be non-faith-based people. It doesn't matter. We welcome anybody to come into the program. We work with everybody, and they're all welcome. We have different ways that we measure success of the program. And we're getting more and more scientific in how we do that, and certainly with the different phases of the program, it's easy to kind of measure that. But I would say the most joyful measure that we have is when we see people come back. The participants keep coming back to us, after years. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of a bummer lamb. Anybody ever hear that? Yeah. So a bummer lamb is a lamb that's been rejected, right, by a ewe, and if the shepherd doesn't intervene, then that bummer lamb will oftentimes die. Not necessarily from starvation, but often from just a broken spirit. So the shepherd will take the bummer lamb and bring them home and feed it with a bottle, and then when that lamb is strong enough, he'll reintroduce it to the flock. But when the shepherd comes out and he says, "Sheep, sheep, sheep," the first ones to come running are the bummer lambs, right? And so we as staff, myself included, I consider myself a bummer lamb. We're bummer lambs, and we work with pretty much every one of the participants as a bummer lamb. So they've been rejected, they've had that kind of background, they're dealing with all this shame, and they come in calling themselves felons and losers and freaks and so on and so forth. But our staff does a great job of working with them to help change their minds relative to who they are. These are remarkable people. They have such passions and gifts, and they just don't know that when they first come to us. And we want to help them to see this is who you really are, And when they learn that, it's addictive in a healthy sense, and they just come back. They come back for that because there's that attachment bond that's been made, and it's powerful. And you can see how that affects people's lives over time. So, workforce training in the context of healing relationships. That's really who we are and kind of what we do. What happens next?
I think we'll have our questions at the very end.
Okay,
So
sounds great.
We'll go on.
All right.
Thank you,
Okay,
guys.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
That was
good.
Well, I'll echo what he said. It's a pleasure to be here with you, ladies. My name's Heather Alexander. I'm the Vice President of Marketing, Communications, and Learning for Goodwill Industries of the Inland Northwest. And it's such a joy to be at the table with these organizations. We're all doing so much in the community, and there are so many nonprofits who are doing so much in the community trying to help meet the needs. So Goodwill Industries of the Inland Northwest is a local nonprofit organization. So we have 23 counties that we serve in eastern Washington and north Idaho. And one of the questions that I always get is, well, I was at this Goodwill and over in Montana. I'm like, oh, that's a different Goodwill. So here's the trivia for you. If any of you who play trivia, I can never remember these things, but there are more than 155 Goodwill organizations across the United States and internationally. And every Goodwill organization is independent. So we, in our Goodwill, serving the 23 counties in eastern Washington and north Idaho, we have specific programs that we offer that meet the needs that our community has said, hey, we need help with this. These are the needs that we have here in our community. And we're like, great, that's what we're skilled at. Oh, there's a need for that. we're not good at that, but we'll refer you to somebody else who is. But then if you go to the Seattle area Goodwill, their programs are much different than ours because the needs in Seattle are different. They have a high population of people of varying cultures, and they need help with job training. They need help learning the English language, so their programs are very different from ours. So when you've seen one Goodwill, you've only seen one Goodwill. My boss likes to say that. Goodwill was actually founded by a Methodist minister, the first Goodwill, back in the early 1900s. And as he was going about the streets of Boston, right, so his church was downtown, but he had a lot of people who were very wealthy in his congregation, who they lived in their fancy houses and they came down to the church. But as he's about walking through his parish one day, he's seeing there's so many people who are out on breadlines, people who are struggling to get jobs, people who have disabilities, people who are immigrants that nobody wants to hire because they're immigrants and they are looking down upon them. And so he thought, well, we have to change this. Let's see. So he went out to people in his congregation and he said, hey, do you have things that you're not using anymore? Do you have clothes that you don't want anymore? Do you have shoes? And collected those donations, brought them back to the church, went back out to the streets and the breadlines and said, hey, come on into the church. Laid them all these things out on the pews and said, take what you need. Free for all. People grab the things that they need. They left. He's like, great. And then the very next day he went back out to the streets, and the same people he saw were on the same bread lines with a new coat or a new pair of shoes, but they still didn't have a job. They still didn't have a reliable source of income. And he realized, I didn't solve a problem. I just maybe made them a little bit more comfortable. So tries that again, goes back out to his congregation and says, really, I promise, I am doing something with the things, but do you have anything else that you don't want anymore that can be repaired that I can have? And so he took those things. Then he went back out to the streets and he said, hey, do you know how to fix shoes? Do you know how to fix cabinets? Do you know how to fix shoes or fix shirts and clothes? Great, come on in with me. Brought those people in. They repaired the donations of his congregation members. Then they sold those items that had been repaired and then used the money from the sale of those items to pay the people for the work that they had done. Now these people had some income. And so that is really how the Goodwill model is formed. We take items that people in our communities don't want anymore, and then we sell those items to fund our social service programs. So we very much believe in the concept of kind of you teach a man to fish. You don't just give him fish, right? Our founder was very frequently said that you give people a hand up. We give people a hand up. We don't give handouts. We give people a handout, and we do that at our Goodwill through job training programs, employment programs, housing programs, and then helping people get financial stability. So if you're looking in the communities and the counties around Moscow, those are the types of programs that you're going to see, people that we're helping to get jobs because they have various types of barriers. Many of the people that we're serving in the area here, they have a developmental disability, or maybe they were injured on the job and the job that they had before they can't do anymore. But they don't want to just live off of some social support. They want to get a new job, but they need to learn how to do a new job. And so helping them get those skills and then going out and being an advocate for them. Did you know that the unemployment rate for people who have a disability is exponentially higher than those of us who don't have a disability? It's harder for them to get a job because people, unfortunately, they look, right, they see the outside and they think, oh, that person can't. Whether they're struggling with drug addiction or they have a developmental disability, they discount people. So our staff go and we help them get jobs. We do interview training with them. We help them develop a resume, and oftentimes they're going out and advocating with our participants to help them get a job and sitting in on interviews with them and them being a job coach for them as they're learning these new skills and learning how to do those things like, hey, I'm not really getting along with this coworker. I don't know what to do. So helping them learn how to have those conversations. How do you go to your boss and say, how do I get my paycheck? Or how do I ask for a day off? All those things that people, you learn over time, but that you need help asking those questions. So that is what the employment part of our services has to do with. We also have a service that helps veterans and their families get into stable housing. You probably know that there's a lot of homelessness in our communities, and in the area around here, one of those populations that we're able to help through our programs is veterans, helping them get into houses, working with landlords to say, hey, will you work with this person? We can help pay their rent. You're gonna have a stable income of rent, and then helping them learn how to have that relationship with a landlord. If you've been living on the street or in the woods for 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 years, you don't know some of those things, right? That otherwise you might learn. This is how you pay your rent on time. Oh, you're not supposed to have a lot of overnight guests. And, oh, my sink's broken. Okay, well, I'll just live with it. No, you can ask your landlord to fix that sink for you. And so teaching them how to be a good renter, and they're building up their credit, they're building up their good rental history, helping them work through those barriers that come if they have anything on their criminal background or in a record. Many of these veterans who are coming to us, they've lost their military ID, and they don't know the process to go through and get it. And if you don't have that military ID, there's lots of resources that you can't connect to that they have earned the right to by protecting us, right? So our staff help them get those new copies of their military ID, help them get the records that they need. So that's our veteran services. And then helping people become financially stable. We have a program that's called Payee Services. Any one of us in this room could have a payee. Not a payee is somebody that helps you pay your bills. They take your income, they pay your bills for you. But payee services are generally provided by people who are mandated to have somebody making sure that their bills are getting paid. So if they are living on Social Security disability, you get a payee to make sure that your bills are paid so that you still have housing, you still have money for groceries, and then if there's money left over, then you get that for your spending money. Unfortunately, a number of people that we've seen come to us over the years maybe have had family members or friends who've said, I'll be your payee, and then they go buy a new car. And then the individual who's supposed to be having their bills paid is living in grandma's backyard in a tent. So, that's our programs are there to help people get a hand up to be able to be independent in their community. And the only reason that our stores exist is to fund those social service programs. The stores also become a benefit for people in our communities who are struggling to get a job. Some of the most touching stories that I have had over the years of working at Goodwill are talking to some of our team members who are facing the exact same struggles that the people that we are serving are. They're homeless, they've been homeless, they have a criminal record, and they've struggled to have somebody hire them because all people see is the record, or all people see is the tattoos, or they see the teeth and they think, oh, they're using meth, I'm not gonna hire that person. And so helping those individuals get that good work history and feeling confident that they can do the job. When I first started at Goodwill, I've been there for 11 years, and my husband and I moved up here from Oregon. And when I first started at Goodwill, we had a gentleman who was going to be retiring. And so when I started, I wanted to go around and meet with all of the staff and find out, what do I not know about Goodwill, right? Because I came from Oregon, and the Oregon Goodwills are different and have different programs than the Goodwill up here. And I wanted to make sure that in doing my job, I was making sure that I was telling the right story, that I was giving the right information, and I really wanted to have a better understanding of what we did. And so this gentleman worked in our employment programs. He was one of the managers, and he had been with us for a number of years, and he was getting ready to retire, which I don't think I'll ever get to retire, but he was getting to retire. And I was chatting with him one day, and we were finding out, I said, what do you like about your job? And he did a lot, and over the years working with Goodwill, he did employment assessments where people would come to Goodwill. So we pay people to have an assessment. So the time that they're working for us, our job coaches and our employment specialists are watching them work every day. They're talking to them. They're finding out what are the soft skills that they need. It's really easy to teach people the hard skills of this is how you do this specific task, and this is how you punch this widget. But what's harder to train people, even us, is the soft skills, like This is how you talk to somebody when you're not happy with them at work. This is how you need to come prepared for work. You need to shower, you need to put on some deodorant, all of those things to make people ready. So he said, so many of the people that we work with who come to us for assessments, they have been told so many times in your life, just like your stories, of you can't do this, you're not skilled, you're not able, you're not smart enough. Imagine hearing that enough times in your life and you believe it. You internalize it. And then it becomes very hard to get a job because you don't think that you can. And so you just stop trying. And so he said his favorite part was watching these people come in and working with them every day. And then they would when they first came in, he said their shoulders are down, their heads are down, just that, you're discouraged. You have the weight of the world on you because everybody has told you for years and years and years, you aren't worth it. And he said by the time they get done working with us for 4 to 6 weeks, their heads are high, they have a smile on their face, they're excited, they're learning new things, and then their assessment is done, and either we or another organization are helping them then to go find a job. And they want to keep working at Goodwill because they've found a home, and they've found that they can do something. He said that is the part of my job that I love the most, and that's what I'm gonna miss. And so over 11 years, I've been able to see that so many times. I won't tell you all the stories because I have too many to tell after 11 years, but I do have, if any of you guys want, I can share you our YouTube channel and you can come watch some of those stories, but some of them are right here in Moscow. So I don't know if any of you know the Schultz family or if you know Toby Schultz. Toby was an Independence Award winner for us back in 2022, so a couple of years ago. So we came down, and then Toby and his family, shared their story with us, their family's story, and just to hear the inspiration that Toby was for me, and talking to his family, and looking at all the paintings that he does, and the impact that he's had at University of Idaho, and the impact that he's had in the community for other people who have disabilities, that he's advocating for them, that hey, we need to fix these crosswalks because people like me, we can't get around town, and we're just as much of this community as you are. Those are some of my favorite stories because they can. We all can. You just need somebody to tell you that you can and to help give you the hand up. So our mission statement is together we create opportunities that change lives and strengthen communities, and that together is all of us. It is all of our partner nonprofits in the community. It is all of our donors. It's all of our shoppers. It's the families and guardians of our participants, and it's our staff. Because it takes all of us, it takes our local government, it takes all of us as agencies working together to help make sure that the people who need our help in our community get the help that they need, and then can get the referrals to that help. So really quick overview for you guys, but I'd be happy to answer any questions later.
Well, I've learned a lot already today. One thing I didn't know is that Goodwill was started by a minister, and you worked, of course, I knew that, with the Nazarene Church, and of course St Vincent de Paul is a lay ministry of the Catholic Church. So we have more in common than I realized we were going to have today. We don't have a store here in Moscow, but we're one of the few in the country, actually in the world, that actually doesn't have a store to work with. So our St. Vincent de Paul local group here in Latah County we're all just volunteers. And the things that we do are, we go out and we visit with people to find out what their needs are, and we go from there. Let's back up a little bit. So, what is St. Vincent de Paul? And I apologize if you guys have heard this before. About a year and a couple months ago, I was on a housing panel. But I've got to repeat a couple things, unfortunately, for you, if you've heard it before.
We wouldn't remember.
Oh, okay. Well, I know what you mean. So it's an international lay organization of the Catholic Church that was founded way back in 1833 by a couple of, a priest and a nun in France. And we're called to feed and clothe, find shelter for the poor, and minister to the sick. But the assistance could go to anyone, regardless of race, religion, gender, etc. Our local conference formed in 2002, and we are an affiliate, I guess, or under the umbrella of the St. Vincent de Paul in Lewiston, Clarkston. But we have different boards, we have different members, and we operate basically differently, other than we have to send our report each year to the Lewiston group so that they can file something with IRS. So, we are funded mostly by donations. So better than half of the money that comes in, and I'm going to give you a little chart here in a little bit, more than half of our money that comes in is donated. We have another half that comes in as grants and donations, like we were talking to this woman earlier of the Unitarian Church, the Methodist Church, and other groups. But we get about 15 grants last year that help us with our mission and carrying out our activities. So our group provides monetary support for rent, utilities, emergency housing, gas, medical, dental bills, car repairs, cell phones, phone cards, and many, many other things. We don't have a place of business, so we're all volunteers. We don't have a location that we work from other than our own homes. And so what we do, which is a little bit unusual, is we usually go to people's homes where we find a neutral place to meet, like Eastside Marketplace. And where you go into the theater there, we'll sit down with a client and find out what's going on, how did they get into that situation, and what we can do to maybe help them out. We have 19 active volunteers right now in our group in Latah County, and another 10 or so assist as a second on case visits and those kinds of things. As you've heard before from these other two folks here, is that we do a lot of partnering. So we do work with Sojourners, the Recovery Center, the Hope Center, Family Promise, Community Action Partnership, the Food Bank, other churches, and we provide referrals to Idaho Housing and other federal and state organizations. And one thing that I better not forget is that we get to about $2,000 a year in these Hope Center vouchers, so that we can give them out. People go back to the Hope Center and maybe they buy a coat, or they buy silverware, or they buy a bed or a mattress or something else. So it really is a huge help. So how about an example of something we might do with the Recovery Center? So just a couple weeks ago, we had a case where Sean, who actually provides some funding from Salvation Army, could only come up with a couple $100 for some emergency housing and rent. And he called us and we said, yes, we probably can help with that. We met with that individual at the Recovery Center, and with an agreement from the rest of our board members, we said, yeah, we'll provide another $300 or $400 to help cover that rent for that month. Unfortunately, we might see that individual again next month, depending on what happens with employment and other kinds of things. We had a very similar experience with Family Promise, who was looking for some help with an imminent eviction, and therefore we could step in and help them with a little bit of money. So I'm going to give you a quick handout here. Here's a couple for you folks. You may get a couple more in your row. If I could get them, any extras back, that would be great. So here's a little comparison from the last 3 years. as you can see, there's a lot of client visits, and the number of people helped. And I took a quick peek at what the population of Latah County is. It's a little over 40,000 people. It's kind of an amazing number that we've actually helped maybe 10% of the population of Latah County at some point in the last couple of years. The in-kind service value, every once in a while we'll get a car donated. So that's why that number is a little bit higher. The in-kind probably includes that $2,000 from the Hope Center vouchers as well. So the hours per total of our members and the volunteer non-members, the miles driven, those are all donated by the members. We don't get reimbursed for that. And if you look at the dollars per visit or the dollars per person assisted, it's kind of a big number too when you think about it, especially with families. And unfortunately, we do see some of the same people repeatedly during the course of the year. So this really doesn't necessarily say how many times we might have met with someone. A couple of surprises to me. The rent for housing. Everybody hears about how rents, whether it's a lot rent for a trailer or an apartment, but rents have skyrocketed. And not just here in Moscow, but all over the region. I know that try to buy a house in Spokane or Moscow or any place right now, it's pretty difficult. And so the rents keep following along. And auto repairs include tires. Emergency lodging is usually 1 to 7 nights. Occasionally it goes a little bit more depending on circumstances. Utilities, of course, Avista, water bills. We've provided water bill assistance for every incorporated town in Latah County at some point. The household might be a mattress or an appliance or something like that someone can't actually find at the Hope Center or Goodwill. But we'll figure out a way maybe to help them out with that. A couple years ago, we had a case where we don't do this very often, but we did cover about a $2,000 dental bill. It was a tough one. We had it was a little boy, had a hard time breathing and other kinds of things associated with just because of a bad bite or whatever. And so we covered a good part of that dental situation. So that kind of gives you an idea. Oh, the additional expenses at the bottom. Well, that's primarily rent, transportation, emergency lodging, and utilities. And we got a grant from Lewis Clark Healthcare Foundation. Last year was $15,000, $30,000 this go around. And that's divided into those 4 main categories, and we didn't divide it up. Stepping Stones, we get a grant from Stepping Stones, and it's primarily for disabled, and it could go to almost any of those different categories. So anyway, prices keep going up, and we are fortunate enough to be able to cover that with the donations and grants and things. So I think I've provided a couple examples.
Where do you get grants from? Sorry.
Yeah, so the Lewis Clark Healthcare Foundation, Stepping Stones, a couple of the church donations, and I have another list here. I could answer that a little bit more. So, what does a visit look like? And I'll only take another minute or two so that we can answer some questions. So what does a visit look like? Prior to COVID, we would go to people's homes, especially for the first visit, mostly. And it was usually 2 of us. We try to pray ahead of time, and we definitely pray with the people as long as they want us to pray with them. And I would say one of the most beneficial things that comes from a visit, echoing what you've heard from these 2 fine people here today, is that lot of times people just want to talk. They want to be heard, you know? They want to tell a story and they want someone to listen, spend a little bit of time with them. And sometimes some of these other things, you think you're going in to help with the utility bill, and next thing you know, that's not the most important thing. It might be the rent. Anyway, I'll answer questions.
So, go ahead and start.
Could this little boy have been helped at Chaz?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And he did get helped a bit, but this was such a difficult dental procedure that it was outside of their normal scope.
Thanks for the question.
So, I guess it's for each one. How are the people who are helping these other people getting training themselves? Like, what sort of training, and how do you become a member? Or, what are the qualifications of the people who do the training?
Right, so our staff, so the question was basically, how does our staff get training? And so some of the staff consists of volunteer people from local churches. Our staff at the Hope Center, many individuals are trained in counseling. So they have that background coming into it. Some people, have a lot of work just in prison volunteering. Like a lot of individuals, some of you might know Steve Otto. Steve Otto is a major figure at the Hope Center. If you thought like kind of like the Mount Rushmore for the Hope Center, Steve is like the George Washington. Yeah.
He's retiring, isn't
Before too long, yeah. And so Steve has been seasoned by just years and years and years of volunteer work within prisons. So you've got kind of a variety of backgrounds within our staff in terms of how they're trained.
So with our staff, it depends. Some of our positions are looking specifically for people who have their master's degree in social work or have some training in social work. Others, like some of our job coaches and that, are looking for individuals who really have that heart for people and who have had some experience working with individuals in a job coaching setting. Some have worked with students as a para in the high schools. So it really kind of depends on what program they're working with and what the specific requirements are for that. So we don't, in our programs, have volunteers that work with them, so ours are all paid positions.
We don't train anybody.
One more thing that I would say is that some of the store volunteers, the folks that help out with operations, will come from WSU or U of I, and then we also have some individuals who are fulfilling community service for various charges they've received. So they'll come in and they'll volunteer in a store and they interact with us. So yeah, very, very big variety of individuals in terms of their backgrounds.
Yeah, that was specific toward the training, but I think part of the question was, how do you become a member of the organization? So our regular members are Catholic. We do, however, allow, I'm just kidding. We have had members, so to speak, that can go as seconds on visits and actually come to our meetings. We have had members who are not Catholic. And so it's mainly a desire to help people. And one thing, there is a lot to learn, but people shouldn't be overwhelmed. It takes a little bit of time to get used to going out and meeting with people, but I think the benefit comes back to you tenfold. So.
Can people who need your services, can they come to you and present themselves? Or they have to be referred?
Yeah, so we're probably all doing that a little bit different. We have an answering machine and a phone number that people call, and then one of our volunteers, week at a time, and we move it around from one person to another, picks up those phone calls and then distributes those client cases out to other volunteers. Usually we have a quick conversation with the person that calls, and then we have a better handle of who to assign it to and maybe a couple of people to go to. So it can be complicated at times. You know, if you have someone who's had an incident where you have domestic violence, we have to be a little careful about how we would approach that kind of a case as compared to somebody that's primarily looking because they've got an eviction notice or can't pay their Vista bill. So we're kind of all over the board.
Yeah, so we get participants from several different areas within the community. St. Vincent's, for instance, is a source of participants. They will refer folks to us. Alternatives to Violence in the Palouse, Latah Recovery, all kinds of different groups will send people our way. We also do work within the prison system. So 2 of our existing participants in the program currently, one of them came from an institution in Boise, just this amazing young lady, and another gentleman came from Cottonwood currently, and they have been fantastic. They've been amazing for us. But we'll do Zoom meetings from inside institutions, and if they meet our criteria, again, we have to be careful who we take as well. And we have a local school that's kitty corner to where the Hope Center is, so we can't take every single person, but we do source participants from the local prison system within North Idaho. So sometimes it's counselees that'll be coming from Weeks in Vitry, or it just depends, but it's a whole host of different types of places that we get participants from.
And our staff and our participants also come from a variety of different resources and ways that they come to us. So sometimes they'll come, and if they don't fit a specific program that we have, we'll help them find or connect to another program in the community that we know can help them. Sometimes they have a need that doesn't fit with the skill set or any of the programs that we have. And then folks can also reach out to us. We've got a form on our website, because we also know that for some people, just reaching out and asking for help is a very difficult thing. It's really hard to ask somebody for help, especially for some individuals. We find that very true for a lot of our veterans and some of our older population as well. And so if they can fill out a form that says, I need help, and here's where I live, and here's what I need help with, and here's how you can reach me, sometimes that makes it a little bit easier. So if we can't help them, we make sure we refer them to somebody who does have a program that they fit with.
Yeah, and because of the Hope Center's dynamic, we obviously can't work with certain cohorts. So some folks with disabilities we can't work with because they can't work within the production zone of the operational structure of the Hope Center. So we will refer those individuals to Goodwill or Voc Rehab or places where they can get help. So we do a lot of working together.
Absolutely.
How does someone qualify for, say, the program at the Hope Center? I mean, is there a drug screen involved? What exactly is the path that makes them eligible?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of people that are dealing with drug addictions, and so we do require 90 days of sobriety when it comes to really heavy-duty types of drugs like meth, other types of things. If someone's dealing with alcohol, we require 30 days of sobriety. So they have to come in. They receive a urinary analysis, and we do randoms during the program as well.
Who monitors those 30 days?
Well, it's basically we'll have those individuals continue to come in, and we'll provide them with a UA, and if they're clean, if they're continuing to be clean, then they will be allowed to come into the program.
And does the Hope Center cover the cost for the
Yes, yeah, we do. And then there are certain situations that we're not equipped to handle. We'll take some individuals with complex PTSD and things like that, but if there are certain levels of care needed, we just don't have we don't have the right structure to deal with those, so we will refer those individuals out.
Who will take care of the recovery center?
Sometimes, yeah, the recovery center has they have a great counseling service there that we can send people to, which we will do that sometimes with our own individuals if they're really struggling. And then sometimes it's disability action, just kind of depends on what that person needs. But yeah, Moscow's pretty great in the sense that there's a lot of great nonprofits that we can work with to help different people. So at one point in time, it wasn't like that, but Moscow's grown up quite a bit, and so you feel like, yeah, if I can't help this, I know that there's other great people that can. So.
Do people self-refer?
Yes, they do. Yeah, sometimes we will have people that just come in because we're dealing with a thrift store. People come in and they find out about the program and they realize, wow, this is a great opportunity for me. I can really get help. So we do see walk-ins, and then we do market and we'll have flyers out in the community. We will post on Craigslist and things like that. So a lot of different places.
You may not know the answer to this, but years ago, we had the Salvation Army. And when they closed, they said, look for us on a location. Do any of you know why they haven't come back to Moscow? They used to be on Jackson Street.
Yeah.
I don't actually.
Just curious.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, they are in Moscow. They operate out of the recovery center.
Oh.
They
do?
Yeah.
The Salvation Army? Where?
Yeah, that's right.
Nobody knows that.
Oh, yeah, Sean or Aaron are the contacts for that.
But they're not in.
They don't have a facility, they just
But
operate.
they just operate. Oh, thanks.
So,
They don't have a store, they don't have a store here.
No,
But they
there's
still
no
own
thrift
the
store. No, they do down in Lewiston.
Yeah.
Here.
They used to.
I bring stuff to Goodwill, for example, and I'm always curious to know, because Goodwill accepts everything, which is a wonderful recycling, you don't wanna throw things out, it's weird to go. So how are these things sent? Are they sent to certain stores because this is a higher value thing, or are they just thrown out, or, I'm not sure.
Okay, so the question was, what do you do what does Goodwill do with the stuff when it comes in? So, again, so yeah, like you said, we are, one of the things that our pillars is, right, also doing good for the earth, right? I used to work for a recycling and hazardous waste removal at a county level when I was in Oregon. So I had all the stuff. I know way too much about environmental stuff, which is kind of really weird with the social service part of me, but my marketing and communications Goodwill just fits my heart. So if you donate something to Goodwill, then if it's something that can be sold right then in the store, like it's not Christmas in the middle of July, it's gonna go to the sales floor. We do also have an online store, right? So items that are, can you hear me over that?
Yeah.
Okay. Items that are of a higher value, like I've never seen them because I've never, don't want one, but like a Gucci purse or a expensive 35mm camera that one might grow legs and walk away, which is the nice way of saying somebody might steal it. Or we also know that those items are going to bring in higher value if they're sold online. So one of the rumors my team deals with on a regular basis is all the good stuff goes online, which it doesn't. I can tell you how much good stuff I found in our stores. But we do sell things online as well, and then those are things that people buy nationally. Sometimes they're sold as an auction, sometimes it's just like a flat rate, so it really kind of depends on the platform. So that's one of the ways that we really feel like we need to be really good stewards of what our donors are giving us, because you're donating to us to, I hope, support our programs, not just to get rid of the stuff you don't want anymore, but it benefits our programs, right? So we ought to be doing the best for our donors, because that money, 85% of that goes to support the programs. So that's an option. If it's garbage, like I was doing a donation drive on Spokane South Hill one day, and these people were moving out across the street, and pretty soon I'm realizing, why do I smell cat pee? Because they had brought boxes full of blankets that had been peed on by a cat. Nobody wants to buy that, right? I have 4 cats, I don't want that smell. So if we get items like that, it's either gonna have to go to the trash, which then that's not your garbage bill, that's Goodwill's garbage bill, right? Which that takes away from our programs if we're having to spend money. So please don't donate your garbage to us. But then also, we have a really strong salvage program. We have vendors that we're working with all the time, so that if we get something that can't be sold in our stores because it's, maybe it's missing, pieces, or it's a holey blanket or a holey shirt that, okay, maybe holey clothes are in style sort of for some people, but if it's like you can't, you just can't, then we can sell things by bulk. So if you were in Spokane, I'd say, hey, come to the outlet, or if you ever want to go to Spokane and you want a tour of the outlet, give me a call and I will take you on a tour. But we have these massive bales of textiles that then those things get recycled, or there are other vendors who will buy them and sell them. So we're always trying to make sure that there is a stream of value coming out of those donations that come to us. Now, I was also at a donation, I was doing actually a TV shoot with KHQ or Chrome one day, and we were promoting a donation drive that we were doing. And this lovely couple brings in, these pots. I'm like, oh, great, thank you so much. And I'm like, these are the kinds of things that we want. And as I'm unstacking this stack of pots, good pot, the bottom's broken out of this one, the bottom's broken out of this one, and then there's a good pot on the bottom. So you couldn't tell that there was garbage in the midst of it. So that kind of stuff happens. And I just choose to believe that people don't realize that they're donating garbage. But we do try to make sure that we get value. And then if it's Christmas, or if you're donating Christmas stuff in July, and we're not going to put it out on the sales floor in July, then we have a warehouse where it gets stored, because our stores don't have room to store things. So we have a warehouse. There's one in Post Falls and one up in Spokane where we'll store things. And then each of the stores then will be able to order, like if you were at another store and you're like, hey, we're out of sheets, we need to order, so our stores can order. We need more housewares, we need more of this. But we have a definite season for when donations are heavy and slow in the middle of winter when it's raining and snowing. Nobody wants to clean out their garage and take a carload of stuff over. And so, it always is pretty lean for donations around about this time of year. And then in the summertime, it starts to pick up again, and we just find our way through.
Years ago, I heard that the Hope Store, when they have summer clothing left over, they barge it to Africa, and then they barge winter clothing to Alaska. Is that true?
It is true.
Oh,
yeah.
and that's a lot
A lot of that stuff goes to some very far-flung places. It's amazing. So just
To nonprofits, or to what's the cost?
to just all kinds of different groups. I mean, they could be for-profit, non-profit.
Do they sell, do they pay you for them?
They do eventually. Well, they don't pay us per se for those things, but those items do wind up getting paid for by intermediary groups that in the chain. But we don't see a lot of that. We don't see a lot of money from
So
that.
you're donating it, is that?
A lot of those items, yeah, we do. I mean, Heather did a great job explaining, the way things work in a thrift store. It's very similar to us with salvaged items and things like that. Some of the metals we can't sell, we will recycle, and we will get some money, a good amount of money from those items. But yeah, those items go to some pretty amazingly far-flung places. And
Well, the cost must be amazing to barge them, though. Do you have any idea what it costs to barge them?
I do not. I do not know what it costs to barge
You're
them.
still doing it, though?
Yep. Yep, we use that baler, it's going all day long.
And you pay to have them barged?
Do we pay to have them barged? No.
Okay.
So you generally have another company that is very similar to you guys
Right.
that
Yeah.
is buying from you, and then that company is
Okay.
paying to, to ship things, over to, other countries that need them or where there's a market for it.
Okay, so that's another question, anybody else? You two are funded with sales of merchandise, you're funded only with donations, right? So, and I also, maybe it's connected, I've heard that Goodwill is no longer a nonprofit, but it is a profit.
No, that's not correct. That's one of the rumors that my team gets to deal with on a daily basis.
Okay.
Yeah, so every Goodwill agency
is a nonprofit organization. And so I think a lot of times people think we're for-profit because people see a store and they think, oh, it's like Target, right?
So do you have a CEO out there who's making a ton of money?
No, our CEO, his yacht is like a 1985 16-foot Stingray that occasionally runs. But so that again, that's in fact, one of my employees was buying a new car the other day because new to them car, her husband's truck got hit by a herd of elk. And so she's in Spokane and they're sitting down to sign papers on this truck, which anybody who had to buy even a used car recently, you know how painful that is. And the salesman says, so where do you work, Michelle? And she says, I work at Goodwill. And he immediately, face gets all scrunchy. And she goes, oh, don't make me work on a weekend. And he's like, oh, yeah, I heard your owner's Mark Cuban and he makes like $2.3 million. And so that is the rumor that's been going around since 1985-ish when, email was the hottest thing since sliced bread. And so every year the amount of the salary gets higher. And, so I've been working here for 11 years. And when I first started out, it was, the CEO makes 1-point-something million. Well, now it's up to 2-point-something million. And the rumor is Mark Coran is Goodwill's CEO. There's never been a Mark Coran who's been a Goodwill CEO. I Googled it one time, there's a Mark Coran who's like a sheriff in Oklahoma somewhere. Mark Cuban is the owner of the
Dallas Mavericks.
Thank you. I'm like, a sports team, I'm spacing it. Anyway, and so every Goodwill CEO, every Goodwill has a board of directors that determines what their CEO's salary is going to be. And our CEO is from Montana, and Clark's a local boy, and he's been with us. He's worked with us for 30 years now. So
What is his salary?
I don't know what my boss's salary is, but you can look it up on our 990. So I tell anybody, if you want to know what's happening with the people that you're supporting, go look up their 990s, and you can find out everything, and that will tell you how well are they using the money and the goods that you're donating to them.
But your sales do pay for the salaries. You said they're paid positions, right?
Yes.
So sales pay for them and donations?
So the donations that are sold in our stores fund our programs and then salaries, right? For all of our staff salaries. So 85 cents of every dollar is funding our programs, and then 85 cents, it's really more like 91 cents, but I don't want to change our signs every year, just keep it consistent. So, but in the 11 years that I've been there, we've been about 9% has been for administrative overhead.
Yeah, just a quick comment about the St. Vincent de Paul. Again, we're all volunteers here in Latah County, and so we donate our gas and occasionally McDonald's cards and things like that. So, like if you were to go up to Coeur d'Alene or Lewiston, Clarkston, there are stores there, and they operate almost exactly the same as these folks do. They do have some staff that they have to pay for. I mean, it's a big deal, and they have a shelter. No, we're completely separate, 501c3, etc. But, so the board though, is probably not paid. I know that the board down in Lewiston, Clarkston are not paid. It's just the staff. But you have to have someone that's gonna operate the store and those positions. You can't imagine what the burnout would be to try to operate that with volunteers. I can't even imagine.
I can't even imagine.
If you wanna donate a car, how do you do that with either one of these organizations?
Well, I'll start since I've got the mic. Talk to me. I would be happy to help you out with a car donation, and we can work that out pretty quickly. I'm sure the
National
same with
Public
everybody.
Radio advertises all the time, or Idaho Public Television, and they say,
Yeah, okay.
it can be a broken.
I need to explain something there. Okay, so we will take cars, but there are problems sometimes where someone wants to get rid of a piece of junk. And we're actually dealing with one of those situations right now. It's actually not a piece of junk, but the value of it is not enough for even our national organization to come and pick it up. So we need to be a little bit careful what we take. We're not NPR or some of the other organizations that will take just about everything. But yes, I'm sure any one of us would take a car donation.
Because I just realized we're kind of going over time here,
Yeah.
so,
Could you just answer about the funding, your staff?
okay.
Yeah, our staff, we have about 12 different staff members who are full-time. So the funding for that comes through the sales in the store, and then we're roughly around 10%, 5 to 10%, give or take, when it comes to actual development dollars that come in through donations that come from like our benefit dinner and things of that nature. And that helps us to keep our prices down and things like that, which, you know, we're working for the participants, but we're also trying to meet needs of people who come in the store and buy items, and we want to try to keep the prices down, so that helps us with them.
Thank you, sorry.
Well, you were gonna say something, the middle one,
Oh, okay.
about the car.
Yeah, just real quick, so again, we used to take cars direct, and then we've had a few of those situations with broken down cars sitting, so we do have you can click on a place on our website. We work with a national company that, you connect with them through us. They take care of getting your car, they sell it, they give us
Okay.
the proceeds
Thank you.
from it, yeah.
I mean, we do receive car donations as well, and it's kind of, people bring them by and with the title, and we vet them, and
That's the problem, they have to have title, right?
yes, yeah, we have to have a
Yeah,
title.
So what we try to do with our car is get it back out to one of our clients that's most in need. So we're not trying to sell it or make proceeds from that. We give it back out to, a family or something like that.
So I'm a non-member of St Vincent de Paul. You might, I don't know if you recognize me. And I have gone out several times to accompany a member for interviews. And the one thing that is very impressive, not only trying to meet their needs, but there is a list of programs that can assist these people. And they don't just give them the money, they try and plug them into programs that are going to prevent them from being in this situation next month. There is even a woman that volunteers to help them with their bill paying, to consolidate their bills, how to get that organized. So I just want to say I've been very impressed with that. It's just not about handing out money, it's trying to help them solve a problem and giving them the pathways to get there.
Well, maybe we're
Yeah.
I just want to thank all three of you so much for coming and sharing all about your work and the wonderful things you're all doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks for the input.